Welcome to Mastering Modern Midlife. I'm Catherine Grace O'Connell, your host today. And we have an extra special show for you with two guests here. Juliet Hahn is a professional podcaster and also the host of YNS, Your Next Stop Live. And we have Cynthia Zordich, who is a co-host on YNS Live and also an NFL engagement insider, the wife of Michael Zordich, a professional NFL player before and now a coach. And we're excited to bring you guys both on today and share your stories and how you also came together. So welcome to the show, Juliet and Cynthia.
Hi. You so much. So happy to be here.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us.
Too.
Yes.
So how do we go from, Juliet, you were a babysitter at one point. Clearly you're a mom now with your own children. But how do you go from being a babysitter of Cindy's to now having this amazing podcast together?
Yes. And it's the thing that's so amazing is Cynthia and I met because Michael came to Philly and I babysat her sister's kids. And so when she moved, it was like, okay, who babysits? I had my friends, my sister, there was like a little bracket of us that used to babysit all around town. So when I started my podcast, Your Next Stop, and I started interviewing people that followed a passion, Cynthia came to mind right away because I remember being that 16 and 17-year-old girl, and we're 10 years apart. So Cynthia was not that much older, but when you're 16 and you see what this woman is doing, it just really, really impressed me because she was doing so many cool things. She always had her hand in creative stuff. 3 amazing kids. I so much enjoyed babysitting the kids because they were just fun loving and energetic, and it just had such great energy. So I remember going back as a 16-year-old girl being like, I have to have Cynthia on the podcast because I remember so much she was doing what I want people to hear about. I want, she's raising her kids. She stayed home, but then she created this passion and followed it. And so that's kind of how we reconnected again, I should say. Right?
Yeah. From Tina. Mm-hmm.
And now you have this shared passion, obviously through the NFL. And it's amazing how your backgrounds seem to have meshed really in some divine timing here. So let's talk a little bit about you, Cynthia. We're going to call you Cindy on the show, but if you guys are looking for Cynthia offline, it's Cynthia Zordich. And let's talk a little bit about the NFL thread, these amazing things that you have created. So not only were you married to a wonderful man who played in the NFL, Michael, who's now a college football coach, you created your own business. And I think I watched several interviews about you, and you were talking about, these men are determined. Michael's determined. He's this wonderful football player, but the wives behind the scenes aren't always highlighted. And you had dreams of your own, and you really made those happen. So let's talk a little bit about your story.
Thank you. Yeah, I just feel like you're right. Thread actually came about because of that whole idea of being caught in the inseam. It's just like, I was looking at the football, and the only thing that's holding it together are the threads, and you can't see them, and I felt like sometimes that was us, as a group of women, because there are so many things, and I've learned so much from so many NFL women. In fact, it started when my husband was completing his career, and I was, what are we in for? What's this going to be like when he's done? We weren't really talking about transition at that time, the way the league is now working with players and families and helping them even forget the word transition. They're just creating a bridge while they're playing. But at that time, we weren't talking about it. And I said to Michael, well, what are we in for? And I wanted to ask questions. So that's when I created When the Clock Runs Out. And that was dealing with 20 stories of NFL players like Mike Ditka and Ron Jaworski and Dan Reeves, and so many great, huge players, that were in there that helped me understand what they went through when they were transitioning out of the game. But it was their wives, when I was there to photograph them, that would catch me on the side and give me great advice. And it was helpful to me. So it kind of like stirred that whole feeling of, I can help others too by sharing my story and others' stories, mostly other people's stories. And that's pretty much how it all started for me.
Well, I'm from Chicago, and I grew up watching the Chicago Bears. I lived in Lake Forest, and there they were practicing, and it was such a huge event for us. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that and for what you've created. And so bringing the two of you guys together as an outsider, I would call myself an outsider when it comes to football. There is such myth and mystery around both the wives of the NFL players and the NFL players, but your whole lifestyle. And that's really where you came in, Juliet, to create this, bridge through through your podcast and the NFL thread. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, after I interviewed Cynthia, Cynthia on Your Next Stop, it was all of a sudden I said to her, we don't think about it. And I like that you called yourself an outsider, because I was calling myself like a lay person. And I was like, that sounds so weird. But really someone on the outside, every time my kids and my husband, this person got traded, we would all cheer, how exciting. And then all of a sudden, after really talking with Cindy, I was like, well, wait a second. That's so hard. That's so hard as a woman to have to pick up your friendships. And especially when you have kids, your friendships, and then having to move and, find the dentists and the doctors. Cause I had just moved, but I moved by choice. So it really got me thinking and really asking her more questions like, okay, so really as a woman, we're all women and we all have, stuff that we have on our shoulders that, our responsibility, especially as moms. But that's just adding another layer. And I don't feel like there's enough places where people can talk about that. So, and at the same time, and Cynthia, correct me if I'm wrong, but Cynthia had someone come to her and say, hey, do you know anything about any podcasts? And she was like, oh, wait a second. And then we really just started collaborating and talking about how we can give, Thread a voice. So it's almost like this is an extension of NFL Thread. So Cynthia would be the co-host and we would talk about it. And me as kind of the layperson, as a comfortable person, that I can ask curious questions and really just say, hey, so if anyone that's going to listen to any of the episodes, it's really fun to see Cynthia and the guest really kind of talk and bring things back up. And it's like kind of a memory lane, but then also just connecting again and being like, you know what, I can't believe we've actually done all of that. The things that we actually did when we were in the league and how we held everything up is just such a beautiful thing. And so many of the women are doing amazing things, like some of the events that we're going to be doing, pre-Super Bowl. It is so unbelievable the amount of stuff they're juggling. And I personally don't feel like they get any credit. Why are you at the Super Bowl? What are you doing? And a lot of times it's not to see the game. It's to do these amazing charities that, we can dive into. But so that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of give a safe space for these women to be able to talk and talk frankly and about their lives.
What would you say, Cindy, is the biggest myth in all this amazing work that you're doing and sort of, letting us in behind the scenes here? What's the greatest myth people have about NFL men and NFL wives, girlfriends, wags? I guess there is an actual term for that. So what's the greatest myth that you have come across?
I would say that, that we're just not doing anything, that I think a lot of people feel like NFL women don't have to do anything, so NFL women don't do anything. And that just cracks me up. In fact, when I was doing a luncheon, and I was organizing the whole Thread luncheon, which is a networking event because NFL women are doing everything. And that's what Thread is really about. It's where are you? What is your business? Let's promote within the NFL family. Let's grow together. Connect by city, by team, by player, by position, by, like everything, there's all these ways to connect. So that's what Thread is all about. When I was at the luncheon, this guy was like, so why are you here? And it's like, well, there's a luncheon that I organized for NFL women. It's like, oh, that'll give them something to do. And I was just like, oh my God, like that is so
viral.
That is not this. Do you even understand? But I just started laughing. I said, oh, there's plenty to do. So yeah, I think that's the number one thing. That's the number one myth is that, that they just kind of like, how when people say, when I hit the lottery, I'm quitting everything and I'm not doing anything. And that's never the case because, your work is the most important thing you do in your life. And NFL women, I think, look at their platform as a purpose and they feel blessed to be, and it's purposeful. So they actually do more. They actually do even probably a lot more than a lot of people would realize, because they do things for their families, their communities, their work, and, NFL women are doctors and lawyers and business owners and philanthropists and they're just hardworking women like all women. And that's why I was really attracted to the idea of yes, I'm connecting them on thread, and yes, I'm telling their story with the playbook, but nobody's actually getting to hear their voices. And that's when Juliet and I were talking. I was like, my goodness, this is such an awesome opportunity to share their voices and to let them be heard for what they really truly are.
Wow. Well, you are not just the wife of an NFL player and now an NFL coach. Your husband now he is a college coach.
He actually was that too. Yeah, he went from he played 12 years in the league. Then he went into coaching. He coached my boys, and then he went to coaching for the Eagles, which was really fun to go back. And then he went to coach for Youngstown State, and then Michigan, and now he's at Central Michigan. And that's a whole other world in itself of coaches' wives that I am honored to be a part of. And these women are just rock stars, like the things that coaches' wives do.
And I love that you two share the whole motherhood thing now. So not only were you a wife, you're a mother to football players as well. And talk about being able to really see two very different perspectives. So what is the difference as a wife versus a mother, seeing your loved ones on the field, and what's those feelings inside?
Well, it's a completely different situation. And when it's your husband, who was probably your boyfriend when it started, you're just kind of caught up into all the excitement of the game. I never really worried about the game. I worried about my kids getting their hot dogs and my family being there. And, Michael always laughs because I was late to every single game. I don't think I ever watched him warm up. I just got there, as quickly as I could. And then when it's your child, it's different because you watch them grow up, what their dreams are. What they have their sights on. You want everything to work out for them. And so you're a part of the entire journey when it's your child. And for me personally, going through, both of my boys were D1 players. And then my son, Michael, went on to play. And when he went to the Panthers, he got hurt on his very first game, first kickoff, first everything. And my husband was right there. It was devastating. Whereas when my husband had situations, I never really felt it that way, but I went through transition when my son got hurt. It was hard for our entire family, and he's doing great now, but it was a hell of a transition. And it was like everything that he thought he would be, he wasn't and going to be. And so he really found a way to express it. And now he's into ranching, and, he's kind of like, he was a fullback. So he's like dodging Black Angus cows now.
That is a bit of a switch.
Yes. So when it's your child, I just prayed, let him find something that can take the place of a dream. And that's an intangible thing, a dream. So I just feel so blessed that he found something that he loves to do, and he feels so great about that. And they were wonderful with him at the Panthers, and he treated him so well. And that was an experience that he had. And he did make it to that point. He just never got to have the type of career that he thought he would have, It's completely
amazing. Well, and we can have more than one dream. Obviously, you guys are both in this continual process of reinvention and moving to the next thing. So Juliet, I want to toss it. I feel like I'm in a tennis match. I want to toss it back over to you, though. You have this commonality of the mom thread, the NFL thread, obviously. But as a mom, you are a busy mom. You are about to head out to a luncheon in the Super Bowl. You are a podcaster. You are a wife. You are an entrepreneur. You are learning how to do all these amazing things and continually stretching yourself. So how do you do it all? And let's talk a little bit about being a mom and balance and juggling and all of those things.
I mean, it's fun. Sometimes we don't do it all well, right? But we just do the best that we can. And I think that's what's really important, is that we give ourselves the credit for that. The best that we can is good enough. So just for an example, my oldest had his confirmation sponsor meeting yesterday, and I realized, oh my gosh, we did not fill out the whole packet. And he then had driver's ed, so he couldn't do it. It was one of those things that I was like, honey, okay, well, we have to do something. I can't believe I let this slip. But it was one of those that wasn't top of mind. I know confirmation's not until April, and but it was like, okay, we're going to do the best that we can. I reached out to them. I was like, listen, we didn't get certain things done. They're like, we always give you a buffer. You're okay. And I was like, okay. I gave the little crucifix sign of the cross and I prayed to God. So sorry that, you're always front mind, but it's one of those things that I really, really believe, that we are given what we can do. And that if there's a time that we question that, we really just have to think of our faith and know that we're going to be fine. You can't stress about the things that you can't control. Cynthia, I was just telling Catherine that I don't even know what I'm wearing. And all my friends are like, I can't believe you don't know what you're wearing. I'm like, it's just last thing. It's not one of the things that are important. I know I'll find something, it will be fine. But it's those kind of things that you control what you can, and what you can't control, you just have to kind of, I kiss it up to God. And I always say, I know you got my back here, but like, there's just times that life is crazy. And I feel like when you have really a lot of great opportunities, it's all, like everything comes at the same time. So it's like, you either have nothing or you have everything. There's never like just a steady of like, okay, but that's life. It's just like when your toddlers are little and they kind of get that stage and you're like, oh, I've got this. I'm really good. I've got this. And then they change to the next stage and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I got to learn something else. I feel like that's motherhood, parenthood, being a woman, everything, and being an entrepreneur, all the things that I'm learning. It comes and I just know, okay, this is what I want. This is a dream of mine. I know I am doing what I am meant to be doing, and however it plays out, it's how it's meant to play out. And I really, truly have to believe that, which I do, but it is one of those things. It's just like, you can't stress and you just got to do it and keep putting one foot in front of the other.
It's so important because we do live in this crazy world of social media and everything looks perfect. But behind the scenes, I know in my world, it is so not perfect. And, I saw a beautiful exchange between the two of you guys on an interview, and you were talking about happiness. And I think it was you, Cindy, saying, let me think, Michael said to you that it's not his job to make you happy. And it was during some time period maybe when you weren't as fulfilled like as you are now. We all go through those periods, but let's talk a little bit about that, about happiness and about learning to really take responsibility for our own happiness and doing those things, bringing things into our lives that make us happy.
Right. Yeah, that was an important part in our marriage, because Michael was, on the top of his game. He was, an Arizona Cardinal at the time. We decided to move home to his hometown and live in Youngstown. I live in Pittsburgh. It was a decision we made together, but once I got there, I really felt like I had no identity. Everybody was so excited to have Michael home. It was like the Aldo commercial, Michael, oh, Michael's home. Like, oh my goodness, I'm just lost. I don't have a job. I graduated from school. I was probably only 23 years old, but at that point I was like, I don't have a career. I'm following Michael around with football. And I now live in Youngstown, and I was angry. I really was. I was mad. And he would come flying in, and he looked like $1 million, and he had all this energy, and I was just like, and so, everything was just bad. So we had to drive our cars. One of the cars had to get fixed. And I just had this miserable look on my face, kind of looking out the window. And when it was time to switch, where he was going to get out to get his car, he's like, hey, before I get out, I just, I don't know what's wrong with you. You're miserable. Like, I can see it, but like, I know I'm not doing anything. And, that's on you. And it's not my job, like, to make you happy. And, I just was like, it just hit me when he said that, because it really was what I was doing. I was like just pushing my anger to him, as in fix it. But the truth was, like, I really needed to figure out like who I was, what I was about, what I wanted my life to be about, how I was going to fit into this new town, and do it with a positive attitude, like be happy. And the only way that I was going to be happy is if I figured out who I was. And that's when I decided to go to school for photography. I became certified. I just dove into that craft, and it was like, it fed me, and it still feeds me my entire life. Photography is the root of everything that I do. I will go back to it always. And it just kind of, it nurtures me, because it actually it helped me find myself. And so I'm always grateful to him, and I'm always grateful to photography that I got through that time, because it's scary when you don't know who you are. It's scary when you don't like have anything to offer. And that's the thing that I think, getting back to the myth, is that people assume that people are happy in that situation, but nobody is. You have to have an identity. You have to find your passion and your purpose in life, and no matter what situation you're in. And I think that that's a lesson like for everybody in the world, you know.
So well said. And I think, as women, especially if you have be it a famous husband or somebody that just has this big identity, it's easy to get lost in there and lost in the shadows. But creativity and tapping into our own creativity is such a gateway to finding out about ourselves. And I'm going to toss this one back to you, Juliet. As your background is as a coach, right? As a life coach and a fitness coach, and a part of what your job is and what you mesh into the podcasting that you do and the consulting and all these things is helping people tap into passion, purpose, creativity, all those things that really help us to, find ourselves. In finding ourselves, we find happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I mean, I think that's what it is. It's really important. As Cynthia said, she couldn't have said it better, is that you have to know who you are and what fuels you. And so the fact that she was able to find the photography because, Michael said a little thing is a beautiful thing. And that's, I think if everyone could be so lucky, but if someone doesn't have a partner that's going to help, push them there, is what I always talk about on my podcast. You have to find that spot where you can dream, where you can daydream and really think about what you want. And if you continue to do that, you're going to find what you're meant to be doing. You're going to find your path, and that is what's going to create your happiness. But you really have to stop and think and really, really be true to yourself and really be honest with yourself.
And what's your advice to someone that really doesn't know where to begin, is feeling so lost and, doesn't know what's that first step they would take?
So one of those things is really, just writing down what makes you excited. Like, what could you talk about at a dinner party for hours? Or what could you talk about with your girlfriend for hours? Or when you sit down in the shower, or not sit down in the shower, but when you're in the shower or you're driving, what are the thoughts that come to mind? And then I really want you to play on those. And then think about, okay, what do I want my life to look like? And this is always a tough thing for people to do. But money aside, everything aside, where would you want to be? What would you want to be doing? What would your life look like? Where would you live? Who were the people that you would be interacting with each day? And then you kind of, when that all looks down and you kind of look at it, it really does start forming something that then you can take concrete and really move forward and start creating this life that you daydream about.
That's awesome advice. So thank you so much for sharing that. And as I said at the beginning, as this sort of football outsider, I had 4 brothers growing up. None of them played football. I went to Vanderbilt University, and it was like a whole thing, a football game. So we got decked out, guys wore coats and ties, and we were like in practically ball gowns. But we were in the SEC, and our team was not so great. So actually all we would do is then start rooting for the other team. So football to me was nothing more than like a big party. And then I happened to watch, I got really hooked on Friday Night Lights, and then Last Chance U. And I had Brittany Wagner on my show because I was absolutely floored on, that side of football. First of all, obviously Last Chance U is a whole different ball game, literally and metaphorically, when football to them is literally life-saving, life-changing. It is an opportunity to, change their lives, do amazing things for their families. So I would love to, maybe just quickly, because I know we're about to go to break, but maybe just toss it back to you, Cynthia, about football in general, on really what it means beyond what we see from the outside of, football and team sports.
Well, if I start with my children, this house was full of children that were like teammates, and I watched them grow like into men. And a lot of that had to do with what they did from the time that they started playing together in the 7th, 8th grade, all the way up until their, state championship games, in high school. And then some of them went on to play in college. Some of them did not, but it shaped them and it made them brothers and it made them leaders and it gave them purpose every week. And it also brought our entire family and community together. So not only did we, have your, Thursday pasta, Sunday game day, we had Friday night games, we just were constantly all week in the community with these boys, with our arms around these boys. And I feel like when they come back here, they talk a lot about that time in their lives. And I'm grateful that they were here and they're grateful that they were here as well. So yeah, football shapes men and women and communities and families. It really does. So that's that aspect of it. And then of course, when you get into the college level, it's a complete different type of purpose, and I know like with my sons, again, it was at that time, team. It was all about team. And both of my boys had pretty extraordinary experiences in school that create that brotherhood once again. And so like, I look at that and I'm like, so happy for them now because they know what it's all about to work towards a goal and to have setbacks, but to concentrate more on everybody. So you concentrate on your company, not just yourself. So that was great. And then professionally, it's just a business, it really is. It's your livelihood. And so you try to just take it as a game, but, every single thing that happens affects people's lives, so when people are cheering for like a win at the end of the game, that somebody that you love might be moving or leaving you, or you might be moving or leaving. So it is a livelihood, not only for the players and their families, but for the coaches, the head coach, assistant coaches. And so every single thing it affects people's lives. And I know it is a game and there is that part of it too. God, it's fun to win. And you always want to win. You do. But those losses, they're not just losses, it's not just an L, it's it's an arrow pointing somewhere for somebody. And so it's pretty interesting though.
Wow, interesting metaphor. And we will be right back after a break and then we're going to pick it up with Juliet. So Juliet, that was an amazing conversation. I would love to toss that ball over into your court as a mom and, as a coach and being in athletics yourself. And we haven't actually touched on that story, how you became an athletic coach. As a mom, did I get it right that maybe you had gained some weight and then you were going into athletics? But I'd really love to hear, what Cindy had shared, what you would say back to that.
About the football? Was that? I'm sorry.
We're talking about football, and at the end we were talking about really the losses and being an arrow. But I guess what I'd love to know, especially with your background in athletics, the losses and how you deal with them as yourself, also the mom of children and athletic background yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I played 2 sports in college and being on teams were always huge and so important to me because of my dyslexia in school. School was not something that I really succeeded at, but I did succeed on the athletic field. So it's super close to my heart. Even when my kids are young, we were always doing something athletic, playing soccer in the backyard, playing football in the backyard, something. And I think what Cynthia touched on that's so beautiful, it is really the team aspect of when you're on a team. When you have teammates, it really teaches you so many different levels that I don't know that really give that there's enough credit out there. But when you're on a team, you have to depend on other people. You can't just depend on yourself. You have to look for your teammates to be able to like, hey, okay, they have a better, they're in a better position. Let me pass that ball. You have to then think about your strengths. Are you a good passer, or is it better if you ran up to the left? So you're also just strategically thinking in your own brain about where it is the best that you can kind of be on that field. So for when my kids were growing up, and they're still growing up, but when they were really little, it was so important for us and my husband and I, because he was also, played sports, that they had this. And we were in a community that they were going to have the opportunities to play really whatever sport they wanted. Because when you're athletic, it really depends on the opportunities you have. You can be super athletic, but there might be not a sport in your town. So it's like you went to something else. But so we wanted to give our kids that opportunity to be able to say, okay, I really love this. I would love to try this. I would love to try that. So then they can play a bunch of different sports. And when they turned a certain age, it was like, okay, this is the sport now I really want to focus on. And I think as our, I know, Cynthia, you could also talk about this. When our kids were younger, it was all about, okay, it's one sport. And I played 4 sports. So I held to the coaches of my kids would always be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're letting them do all of these different things. You're going crazy. You're running to so many different practices. My kids were happy, and I was happy that they were able to really try multiple sports. And then when they were, 15, 16, be like, okay, this is the sport now I want to concentrate and maybe go to college with. So I think it just gives you different opportunities in the world. It gives you a different mindset. It also teaches you how to treat your body and how you feel. So it's another thing with nutrition. Okay, I feel better doing this. There's so many different things. And that brings you to, when I was pregnant, I gained 65 pounds. I said, I played sports all through college. So I was always training, and I stopped when I moved to New York City. I said, okay, I'm going to take a break. And then when I did get pregnant, but I was able to take it off. I turned 40 and my body changed. And I wanted to give women the sense of, okay, you can go through all these different changes. Your body can change. It's really about your mind and using the tools that I'm going to give you to kind of get yourself there. So it doesn't matter if you're 20, 30 pounds overweight, but if you feel good and you feel good in your skin, it's really not so much about the weight and how your body looks. It's really about your mind. And I think it really all goes back to that mindset.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I do want to pick up one thing that you said, but first I want to toss it back over to Cynthia to just, share anything that came up for you in that conversation, because you guys have so many amazing similarities and now the athletic background. And I don't actually know if I read anything about you personally being athletic, but really this whole teamwork, camaraderie. What I get from you in creating the NFL thread is you've created a team, you've created a community, you've created a place where women can learn to not compete, but collaborate and really help one another and be that guide for one another in different kind of positions they play through this course of being, be it an NFL wife or an NFL mom or, part of that. So I'd love for your insights in there. And then I want to toss it back to you, Juliet, about dyslexia. I don't want to forget that because that was an important conversation you had.
I think that in terms of, you're right about, I'm not a competitive person, and I never really was a competitive person. I was a cheerleader, and I think that I was a cheerleader all through school and all through college. And I enjoyed that very much because of that whole, I got to participate in a team sport that was never really about an individual. That's mostly me. That is who I am. That a lot of athletes aren't like that, and I know to be a cheerleader, it is a very, very athletic. But I still didn't look at it like that. I looked at it like I was a part of a group that was helping Penn State University, and to represent Penn State gave me serious pride, at that point. But when I raised my kids, I, of course, let them do the leading. Do they want to play sports? Or is this their passion? My husband did not push them into sports. He was like, honey, do you want to do this? And they did. Our daughter, Aiden, very much like me, wants to be involved in everything, tried everything, enjoyed everything, but really for the, all of her sports between basketball and softball and cheerleading, all about being with a group and like, what are we going to do afterwards to make us even closer? She's always bringing people together as well. So I think that everybody has their place in sports. You have your captains and your leaders and your fine athletes. And then you have those people on the team that are just happy to be a part of the team. And I learned that a lot with my sons. I would do a video every year for their highlight reel, and I would interview all the players. And a lot of the players who were actually on the scout teams, just to help, they looked at their job as to make the starting quarterback a better quarterback was very important to them. They were so proud to be on that team and a part of that and their role. They were happy within their role. And I learned a lot from those boys. And I think the other kids did too. So everybody has their place in sports and in the world, and you just kind of have to be true to where you belong and where you fit in.
I read a really amazing quote. This was, I think this was from one of your sons, but it was said, it's funny. He said, because a lot of people would think our dad is the football general and everything we learned came from him. But my mom has been awesome. My brother and I learned great lessons from her. Definitely the confidence having the right attitude about the game and our abilities. She put a lot of belief in us. Mom understands the football mindset. I thought that was amazing.
I never heard that. I like that.
Oh my God,
really?
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
I'll send this to you. I don't know. I did a ton of research. I was just pulling clips.
I like
It
that.
was,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I was like, wow, that was incredible insight, and obviously showing that sometimes we're touching people, our own children, but other people in ways that we don't even have any idea as, and a little, like, what do they say? Little ones have like little ears and little eyes that we're not necessarily knowing. They're watching us all the time.
Awesome.
So, and Juliet, I wanted to toss back to you. I feel, again, a ping pong match. So there was a conversation with you and a teacher, and you talk about dyslexia. Oftentimes we look at it as an obstacle because it is certainly an extra hurdle, can be, but you really look at it as a blessing or an advantage. And there was an interaction with the teacher at one point, and do you know what I'm referring to? Where you really opened her eyes as to, we don't all learn the same, and don't judge me here because I'm smart over here I'm struggling, and don't put it like a blanket over all of us. So that's you.
Yes. So that was an English teacher, and I believe she was 8th or 9th grade. And so what I would always do is I would get the cliff notes, and then I would have my friends kind of tell me, okay, what are some of the juicy things? And I was really good at just putting things together and having conversations about it. And I could speculate, okay, if this happened in the book, I'm sure this is also going to happen. So I would be the one that would lead all the conversations, always raising my hand. And then we had our first paper, and, she was, oh, you're so pithy. I love this. This year is going to be so amazing. You really get this, where did you get this insight? And I'm like, I just, I love to be a big thinker. I love, critical thinking, and I love all that stuff. So when I sent my paper, and I really worked hard because this teacher was giving me, praise. I really never got praise from teachers because it was always like the handwritten work or the test. And I was definitely not good there. So this teacher, I was like, okay, I'm going to really feel it. So I really worked hard. I remember my mom did not do her work, but she helped, me, definitely supported me, but let me kind of run with it. And I turned it in, and the teacher after class was handing everyone's back and said, Juliet, can I see you after class? And my heart sunk because I was like, oh, crap. Okay. I guess I didn't do that well on it. And so she said, I'm really disappointed in you. You didn't try. And I just remember being crushed because I tried so hard. And I said to her, I really tried hard. It's really hard for me to put what comes out in my head on paper. It never comes out the same. And she stopped and said, well, wait a second. I said, and this is before, so I had I guess they called it processing. It was before dyslexia had the big umbrella. And so it was, now we would know that that's what it was. It was dyslexia. And so she said, oh, okay. Now I understand. And I really am sorry that, it changed the way. She said, I'm not going to just assume because someone doesn't seem like they struggle in school. Because when you saw me and you see me, you hear me talking, you would think, oh, she's a really good scholar. And this is what I talk to my kids about all the time. There's street smarts, there's, emotional IQ, and then there's also book smarts. And not everyone has them. And, some people do have all three, but it's a rarity. And when you have one or the other, it doesn't mean you're less than. It just means that is your God-given strength. And that's what, you're meant to be doing in the world. Just because you sit down and do the schoolwork, a lot of times, and not because my mom's a teacher and I have, high regards for teachers, but a lot of times teachers went into teaching because they were good in school and they loved school. So they went into teaching. So they don't understand all the time that people just don't learn the same. So sometimes you have to change the way you teach or the way you speak and adjust yourself. And so it was definitely, I just remember being crushed, but it built a resilience in me. It also built where I knew I succeeded and where I got praised from people. So I always knew that my communication was something that I was going to do, because that's when people stopped. It wasn't like, oh, they didn't correct me all the time, right? I didn't get the red letters. It was like, oh, someone's stopping to listen. I have something to say. So that was definitely very apparent in my schooling.
Well, it also was an eye-opening moment for her, and I would imagine from that point on, she was not necessarily broad-brushing children all the same, and we're all learning the same. Right. And so, and again, one of the interviews you guys had, Cynthia, you were talking about an awakening. You were like getting really excited and talking about this passion sort of bubbling up in you. And really, this would apply to both of you guys. And I think to what I consider midlife, not to be an age, but an experience that's sort of this phoenix rising, this authentic self coming up going, hey, I'm finding out all these parts of myself like I didn't even know they existed. So, tell us a little bit about that. An awakening. What was that experience for you?
Is this full blown that we're talking about?
Yes, it is. That's how you
Oh,
guys, it was you and Julia, you were in the exact same place in the kitchen and you were talking. That is exactly the language you use. Yes.
full blown. Yeah, that was incredible. And I still want to do something with that because I really believed in this energy. And I had this desire to share it with so many of the women around me. And some of them were like, she has gone off the deep end and help her, and but it was an energy that I was hit with. And I called it full blown because like full blown is when the flower takes that final burst, and then it's just like, wow, and then it kind of relaxes again. At the time, I was only 36 years old and I thought I was like this grown woman, mature woman. When I look back on that, I just crack up that I was only 36 years old. But this awakening was about, it was like, the way I call it, it's like a love affair with yourself. It was my childhood coming back to me to kind of spin me and remind me of all the things that I wanted to do, how I thought and how I lived life, like you played really hard. And I looked at it and started investigating and realized that full blown could either spin you and just remind you, or it could spin you in another direction, depending on if you were being true to your childhood self or you were not. And so in investigating it, I found that some of my friends were going in another direction when they realized it. That's where my photography came back into play. And I started to document all of the women around me to find out like what they were feeling. And if they share this energy about the childhood coming back, the child within you coming back to spin you, to remind you, were you being honest with yourself? Were you living a fulfilled life, or were you feeling it half frame? And so I did a whole metamorphosis of it, and I really enjoyed it, and it was good for me. At a certain point, it was time to go home. It was over. But what I realized afterwards was that I was seeing other women go through it, and I realized that full blown is a time when a lot of women that are not necessarily middle age, but somewhere in their life, they misinterpret this affair that's with themselves. And they think it's with the high school boyfriend that they hadn't seen for a long time, or the guy at the post office, or just, being alone, and they change their life a lot and they go in that other direction. And then because it's a phase and there's a period of beginning and ending with it, they end up gone like from the life that they might have just kind of like paused for a moment and realize it for what it is, which is it's about you, not about somebody else. And so I wanted to share that with the world because I was like, don't make that mistake. This isn't about that. This is about you. This is you. And so it's pretty deep, but it's something that I feel, and it was an awakening, and it was exciting. And for a lot of the people that I shared it with, it was exciting for them too. And we got to document the whole thing. And someday I want to do something more with that.
That's amazing. I watched that interaction with the two of you guys, and I could hardly like the energy in you was this passion. So, and Juliet, the podcast that you created really came from, initially it was like Crazy Town, right? So, but it is morphed over time into really diving into creativity and passion and helping to unlock that, in women. And so in that frame and, taking off on this whole awakening thing, what has been your experience, your personal experience, as well as through your podcast, what you've learned through this passion, purpose, creativity, and awakening in a woman?
Yes, of course. And I love how Cynthia, and you could even just see her energy. She gets so excited about it, but it's so true. There's a time, and I'm going to say it because it happened with my children. I decided to stay home with my kids, which I love, and I will never turn back on that. But when they got a little older, I remember not feeling as fulfilled. Like, okay, I need something. And it's like, you feel that energy inside of you. It's like, okay, I need to do something else. What am I meant to be doing? And so I think it's for women to really take that and run with it. But then also, as Cynthia said, kind of bring yourself back and remind yourself like, okay, this is what I always wanted to do. And so that's what the podcast, it originally started as Next Stop Crazy Town because it was just a passion project. I wasn't, I was doing it just to really tell stories and connect with women on the outside saying, okay, you know what? I know you see me working out, because this is when I was really doing a lot of the fitness coaching. You see me on social media, but we're not always put together, right? There's like a hot mess going on behind us. And just because we come across, and I really thought I was sharing this on social media. I mean, because I was like, I'd wake up and be like, oh my God, this is what happened yesterday. And I was really honest. But time and time again, the clients that I would have would always say, but how do you stay, like, you just seem so happy and your energy is always so good. How do you stay that way? And I would stop and I would say, I think it's really something that's innate in me. I think I was born just a very positive, happy person. But it's also because if I ever feel that time where I feel like I'm getting a little stuck, I will create something. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, I'm bored. No, I'm not a tree. I don't have to be planted in the same place. I can create things and do things. So that's where Next Stop Crazy Town kind of started. I really started it as personal journal stories to share stories, like the time my oldest fell out of his high chair and I, 2 weeks before was kind of shaming Britney Spears. And I was not someone that shamed, but it was like, how can someone ever let their kid fall out of the high chair? And then mine did. And I just remember stopping in my tracks and being like, oh my goodness, this happens to good mothers. Like, what, who am I to shame her? Or like, so it was a story like that, because we all go through it, right? You see the parent with the kid screaming and you're like, oh, they probably didn't get a good night's sleep or they had too much sugar. And we need to stop that as mothers, and we need to kind of support and be like, hey, is there something I can do for you there? And not judge. And so it was really coming from that space. And also, coming from a house with 2 dogs that are crazy, pulling crock pots off the counter. I wanted to show people like these things happen and we just move on, right? You can't sit and dwell in it. And that's what was so important. You can have a moment, but if you let that moment define you, kind of shame on you. You got to move on from that moment and create other things. So that's really how it all started with Next Stop Crazy Town. And then it did morph into Your Next Stop when I started doing the interviews.
Wow. I think as a mom, if we haven't had that moment where we did something, the baby rolled off the bed, we've all had those, no matter how perfect we are, we do not control everything. So, and I know this show is going to be aired a little bit later, but you guys are on your way, like right now, out to the West Coast, Santa Monica, an amazing Super Bowl luncheon. And, before we wrap the show and direct everyone to find both of you on social media and all the amazing things you're doing, just share a little bit about this, that you're coming together, and now all these dreams, like these opportunities are just, I don't want to say presenting themselves, you're making them happen.
Yeah. And I'm going to start real quick. So Cynthia has done all of this stuff for years, right? So she is taking me along with her, which I'm so blessed and thankful that she trusted me to be a part of what she has created and all the amazing things that she does behind the scenes, because she is doing, I mean, I can't even tell you the amount of stuff that this woman does and does it. Yes, we all have our moments, but does it really wonderfully because of her energy and because of who she is deep inside. So I'm going to let her explain it, but I'm going there because she asked me to come with her.
And you're broadcasting the podcast out there.
Yes.
So that is really wonderfully exciting. So Cynthia, you're on, sister. Tell us, this is crazy exciting.
No, because it really is, we're doing this together, and it really does bring a lot to the luncheons, because at the Super Bowl, not only do I have the luncheon, because this year for the Playbook, which is the magazine that goes to all NFL players and former NFL players, there's the actual magazine, and then there's the digital magazine. We're celebrating that because volume 4 is the boss issue. And we highlighted all players and spouses that have their own businesses. And exciting stories in there, just wonderful. And so we decided, let's make this luncheon a networking event where we just have everybody come and talk about what they do. What's that thing that you do? Let's hear about it. So all the girls that have, and players also have RSVP'd, which is really exciting. I'm like, heck yeah, come. So it's going to be like a really nice networking event. Not only are they going to be at the luncheon to meet each other, talk about what they do, but Juliet's going to be there live broadcasting. So not only are we giving them the opportunity to network here, but it's like, jump on the show and let the world know what you're doing. Oh my goodness. It adds so much to the luncheon. I love it. And the luncheon I'm doing, of course, on Thursday, but on Friday, I'm part of an amazing organization called Off the Field NFL Wives Association. I'm actually the vice president of it. And this has been an amazing organization since 2006. It's a 501(c), all made up of NFL wives who founded the organization for the purpose of impacting families, impacting communities wherever they go. And in 2001, they did their first fashion show. I was at Holly Robinson Pete's fashion show in the year 2000 with my girlfriends in Atlanta for the Ice Storm Super Bowl. That was a crazy time. And she had a beautiful fashion show there. And then Holly decided to bring her fashion show and gala event to Los Angeles, closer to her family. So Off the Field, with a few great founders like Sharice Brown and Ramonda Jordan and Kim Wheatley, and a lot of great girls, started this Super Bowl fashion show that has grown and grown. And this is the 21st. We work all year for the fashion show. So I'm on the program book committee, and I'm like, this whole weekend is going to be insane, crazy, because we have so many sponsors coming in. We have so many like people that want to get involved still to this on this last hour. But Juliet and I will be broadcasting live at the fashion show. This year it benefits the Holly Red Foundation. So it's kind of like a full circle situation, because that's Holly and Rodney's foundation for Parkinson's and autism. And so they're our beneficiary. So we just will be having these amazing sponsors. The NFL wives just rock the runway. Their player husbands come for the last walk with them. It's really great because they're in this awesome supportive role. And the community at Santa Monica Place is just going to look incredible. And we have Shutterstock that's going to be covering the entire event as our sponsor. And so it's just a lot, and amazing that we're going to be doing this together. Juliet's going to be like the red carpet interviewer and being everywhere, talking to everybody about who they are, why they're there, what they love about the fashion show. And we're really going to make an impact with the foundation. And we're so excited about that. So two really
Amazing
big things. Yeah.
Amazing. I cannot wait to watch. I will be a front row seat here watching you guys, and obviously fashion being my wheelhouse. I know we have to wrap pretty quickly, but I want to make sure people know where to find you. And also, what are you wearing? I know Juliet wasn't sure, but what are you wearing in this fashion?
My girlfriends all ask that too. What are you wearing? What are you wearing? I know. I might have to get dressed. Santa Monica Place is allowing all of us to get dressed, and so I think that I might have to do that. There's a pretty committee, so I might have to.
Perfect. So now where can people find you on social media? Where can they find your book if they want to get your book, if they want to get involved with all the amazing things that you're doing?
Well, for Juliet, with IamJulietHahn.com, and then on her Instagram, it's IamJulietHahn as well, right?
Yep. Yep.
She has her awesome link tree there where you can find all of our podcasts.
Exactly. It's a very busy link tree. There is a lot in there. If you want to find out, you guys are doing is there for sure. And you have your own website though. Cynthia, you have your own website as well, right?
Yeah, so mine is, So I have, and then on Instagram for myself as well, it's at NFL Thread. And then I do also have my link tree, which takes you to Off the Field, to YNS Live, to NFL Thread. I'm also on NFLthread.com that you can see pretty much a lot of the work. You can download the playbook, and read all those amazing stories and just kind of follow all the things that we're doing as well.
Yeah, yes. I did read some. They are pretty amazing stories.
Well, and I was going to say, and we're going to be doing this every year. So like, if this is something that you're listening, because I know this episode's coming out after what we're doing, if you all of a sudden are like, wait, we want to get involved. We're also doing this at draft in April, and then at the Hall of Fame dinner. So there's opportunities for sponsorships, and then next year again to get involved with the Super Bowl and stuff. Yeah. So look,
Michael's
amazing.
Isn't he so
amazing?
I know, he's so beautiful, and it was really an honor to have him with Smack Entertainment and all the things that he's doing with his brand. What a lesson for the players to see what he's doing with his career. I don't even know if he sleeps.
Right.
I don't know if you guys sleep, but hopefully not anytime soon. So thank you so much for being on the show. And we will make sure that everything, the show notes are there, and all the places to find you are there as well. And like I said, all you have to do is head to Juliet's Instagram, and in her LinkedIn profile, there's an update of everything there. And be sure to download the Fireside app as well, because you can find YNS there too. So thank you both for being with us today. This was just such a delightful show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Love it.
And safe travels next week. I'll be watching.
Yes.
And thank you so much, beauties, for being with us. And if you love today's show, please share it and check out both Juliet and Cynthia and the amazing work that they're doing. And with that, cheers, beauties. Stay fierce.